Hello, fellow food lovers. Today I will be making Chinese poached chicken, also known as white cut chicken, also known as Hainanese chicken, with ginger and green onion sauce. You will need a whole chicken, about 2 to 3 pounds worth, green onion, ginger, cooking oil, salt. For the soup, you're going to need some Chinese greens, either yu choy or bok choy or napa cabbage. Okay, so I got a big soup pot here. I'm going to fill it about 2/3 full with water. We're going to poach the chicken in this water. And along with the chicken, we're going to put 3 green onions in the soup stock in the water, just to flavor the chicken. So I cut the roots off. I removed any old bits, and I'm just going to throw it in there whole. So I got some ginger. I'm going to cut off a couple of big slices. And I'm just going to throw that into the pot as well, just to give the chicken some green onion and ginger flavor. And I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of salt as well. So when the chicken is done poaching in this, I'm going to actually use the liquid for a soup. Okay, so I'll put it on the stove. I'm going to turn it to high heat. I'm going to bring it to a boil. Okay, so here's my chicken. It's about 3 pounds. A lot of Chinese people like to make chicken using an entire chicken with the head and the feet and everything like that. But it's totally fine to use a supermarket chicken that's, headless and that doesn't have the feet attached. So I'm going to give it a quick rinse. You want to check the inside cavity. Sometimes they'll have a little package with some organs in there, like liver and kidneys, or it'll just have like loose organs sitting in a cavity that you need to pull out before you poach it. So I'm going to pick the chicken up by the legs, so the big opening is face up. I'm actually going to dip the chicken in the water so the cavity gets filled, and then I'm going to lift it out so the water drains out the top end. I'm going to do that 4 times. And the reason you do that is just to heat the inside, so it'll help cook the chicken evenly. Yeah, so I'm just filling it with hot water and it drains, and I'm just doing that 4 times basically. And I'm going to drop the chicken in, make sure the entire chicken is immersed. Wings, legs, everything. Make sure it's all in the water. And then once it's done, it's in the water. When it comes to a boil, you're going to boil it for about 4 to 5 minutes on high heat. This is the only cooking you're going to do. After the 4 or 5 minutes is up, you're going to turn the heat off and you're going to cover the pot. And so it's very important that you cover the pot, because that boiling and sitting on the hot element that's turned off will keep the chicken cooking. So so once it's boiled for about 4 to 5 minutes, we're going to turn the heat off just like that, and then we're going to put the lid on. So don't move the pot, leave it on that element that was hot before, and that will give it the residual heat to keep it cooking. So we're gonna just leave the chicken like that for about an hour, one hour, and then it should be done. If you don't feel comfortable about just boiling it for 5 minutes and then turning it off, after you boil it for 5 minutes, you can also turn it down to low and leave it on low for an hour. So you have the option of either turning it off entirely and leaving it sitting on the element for an hour, or just leaving it on low for an hour. Either or is fine. But if you turn the stove off, the chicken's going to be cooked. That shouldn't be an issue. Okay, so I had 3 or 4 stems of yu choy. So I washed it and I chopped it into little pieces, and that's going to be added to the soup after the chicken is done. And then I have a big piece of ginger here. It's a pretty big piece. It's maybe a 1/4 of a pound of ginger, maybe 1/4 of a pound, maybe 1/8 of a pound. So I cut the skin off and I'm going to mince it really finely. And this is going to be for the ginger green onion sauce. So slice it, then I'll julienne it, and then I'll mince it. Yeah, so just before that, I had 3 or 4 stems of yu choy, which is Chinese green, and I washed it, and I cut into little pieces, and that's going to be added into the soup after the chicken's taken out. Okay, so the ginger's all nice and minced up. And this is a very famous sauce. It's well loved by the Cantonese people. They'll eat it at anything, not just they don't just put it on chicken. They put it on the rice. They put it on vegetables. They put it on anything. Because this is the second part of the ginger green onion sauce. So I have about maybe eight things of green onion. So I'm going to cut off half the green part. You don't need all that green part. Most of the flavor for the green onion ginger sauce comes from the white part of the onion. But you want a little bit of green as well, but not a whole bunch. So I cut off half the green. And you can save that and use it for something else, totally. You can chop up the leftover green bits and sprinkle it over top of stir fries. Okay, so I'm going to cut the green onion longitudinally, and then I'm going to mince it, and then give it a fine chop. So you want the same amount of ginger and green onion, so it's 1:1 ratio. Okay, so I'm going to make the ginger green onion sauce. So I put about 5 tablespoons of cooking oil into a hot wok, and then I added the green onion, and then I added the ginger. So you're going to give it a really quick stir fry, basically, not even 30 seconds, 40 seconds. You don't want to cook it. It's just to kind of heat it up, basically. So along with the 5 tablespoons of cooking oil, you're going to add a good maybe teaspoon of salt to it. And then you want to let it fry for a bit and give it a mix. And then it's done. So you didn't need to do it for stir fried for more than 30 seconds. It still has it's not cooked. It's still got a kind of raw element to it. Like, half cooked, I guess. Okay, so we're going to get the chicken ready. It's been sitting in the pot for an hour now. So I'm going to take a tray of ice cubes. I'm going to put it into a big mixing bowl. I'm going to fill that 2/3 with water. So the secret to a really juicy and flavorful Chinese poached chicken is when you take it out of the pot, you put it into an ice bath. And that causes all the juices to get sucked back into the meat. So that's what makes the chicken really juicy and moist. So the secret is to put it into an ice bath after you take it out of the pot. Okay, so the chicken's been sitting in the pot for about an hour now on the same element that's been turned off with a lid covering it. Okay, so I use chopsticks to kind of pull it out of the water. So I lifted it out by the legs and I'm kind of slowly putting it into the ice bath. So you want to let it sit for about 5 minutes on one side and then turn it over onto the other side and kind of alternate. Do that maybe 3-4 times. So every 5 minutes, just turn it over so that the entire chicken gets cooled down quickly. Okay, so I brought the soup to a boil. Those big long pieces of green onion that are boiling in the soup, I removed them. They're all kind of done with. You can't really eat it. And then I threw the chopped up pieces of yu choy in there, and I'm going to flavor the soup. So I'm going to take 1 tablespoon of chicken powder. And 1 tablespoon of oyster sauce. And I'm going to let that boil for about 10 minutes just to make the yu choy leaves nice and tender. You don't want al dente Chinese greens in a soup. It should be kind of well done. Okay, so the chicken's been soaking in the ice bath for maybe 15 minutes. So I'm going to drain the water. It's totally cold now. So usually when I chop the chicken up, and yeah, the chicken's usually chopped up into little pieces. That's how it's served on a platter family style for a Cantonese meal. Usually the first thing I do is I'll turn it onto the breast. So the breast is down. And then I'm going to actually cut through the back. And then once I cut through the back, I'm going to cut through the front. I'm going to cut through the breast through the inside. Like just like that. And then I have the chicken so that there's a left side and the right side. So I'm going to save half the chicken for tomorrow's meal. And then I'm going to use half the chicken for today's meal. So today's meal will be just white cut chicken or Hainanese chicken basically. So it's basically poached chicken with a ginger and green onion sauce. So first thing I'll do once I half the chicken is I'll cut off the wing and then I'll cut off the leg and thigh. And then the body, I'll cut that in half lengthwise. So there's a breast part and a back part. And then I cut the back into maybe 3-4 pieces. And that's the breast right there. So I'm going to cut the breast into maybe 4 pieces. And you need a good cleaver to do this. And you have to be careful you don't cut your fingers off. It could be quite dangerous if you're new to cutting meat with a cleaver. So you want to arrange that in the center of the plate. One side being the chicken back and one side being the chicken breast. Then we're going to cut the leg and thigh. We're going to cut the leg and thigh into 4 or 5 pieces. Just like that. And then I'm going to arrange it along one side of the plate. You want to arrange it nicely so it kind of looks like, a chicken almost. And then I'm going to cut the wings. I'm going to cut off the little drumette. And then I'm going to cut the wing and the tip. And I'll cut the drumette into 2 pieces as well. And I'll put that on the other side. Or maybe I'll put it on top too. So that's how you present a half chicken. You could fit an entire chicken on that plate. Just put half of the chicken along one half of the plate and put the other half of the chicken on the other half of the plate. You can also do that. Okay, So I'm going to transfer the ginger green onion sauce into a small serving bowl. And it's done. Yeah, so it's done. There you have it. That's Hainanese chicken, or Cantonese white cut chicken, or poached chicken, or boiled chicken. It's a very famous dish all over China. In Cantonese cuisine and in as a Hainanese chicken, it's almost always served with a ginger green onion sauce, which is kind of like a really refreshing and tasty sauce to go with the chicken. And this is a great dish to eat with rice. A lot of times with a Cantonese meal, like say supper, this would be one part of several dishes that are sitting in the center of the table, and everyone gets a bowl of rice and a bowl of soup. And they kind of just help themselves to whatever's in the middle of the table. So yeah, there might usually be a chicken dish and a fish dish and a vegetable dish, maybe a meat dish. Okay, so here's the soup. It's been boiling for 10 minutes, so it's pretty much done. I turned the heat off. I'm going to ladle it into a bowl. And with Cantonese suppers, usually there's always a soup. Everyone gets a bowl of soup, and it's a different soup every day usually. So when you make a poached chicken or a Hainanese chicken, you got the soup comes along with the chicken. Yeah, so it's a nice clear chicken soup with some ginger flavor, ginger green onion flavor. And there's the chicken. Okay, bon appetit.